We're back, Israel Uncovered with Daniel and Ruth.
Hello.
So one of the things we've wanted to chat about for a while, and that people are curious about is travel. Travel during wartime. What happens? Especially when you with planes and flight cancellations, airports closed, missiles being fired at the airport. So what happened, and how did we? What did we do over the past 18 months when it comes to travel?
Yeah.
Any stories?
So most airlines stopped flying in and out of Israel from October.
2 days a day or 2 days after they started stop.
Yeah, they slowly stopped.
Yeah.
Flying in and out, which basically left us with very little option, very few options of airlines.
El Al, the local airline.
El Al and Israel Air.
Right.
All the Israel Airlines. I think Wizz Air is part of it.
Maybe.
Wizz Air? I don't know. I have been travelling in and out on El Al since October 7th. Before, I actually used to go EasyJet.
How were the prices?
They were a bit more than EasyJet, but with me, I'm able to be actually quite flexible with dates and times. So none of my flights have been extortionate.
I think in general they were quite good at not exploiting that. They could have tripled the price of flights.
I know a lot of people are very angry, but
people are always angry, and of course they charge a bit more. But I don't think they could have charged 10 times more, and people would have paid for it because they were desperate. So I think they made also like a huge campaign and a massive deal out of the fact that they were not gonna take the piss out of price increases.
Yes, they've also made something like $545 million profit.
Oh yeah, of course, because basically they had the monopoly. So yes, they didn't take the piece, but there hasn't been like an empty seat on a plane anywhere for 18 months.
But I'm also good for them actually.
Yeah.
They really I had one incident at the airport which was just awful. They were so disorganized. It was their first day opening Ben Gurion. It was just chaos in the queues with jumping the bag. It took me nearly 2 hours to check in a bag.
Right.
And I had to be moved, and I was there in loads of time, and it was just chaos. And I was running to the flight, and then the flight was just also chaotic. So that was my one bad.
Typical Israeli disorganized.
It is, but usually actually with El Al, they're actually very good, and my dad has been super impressed with them.
I think they're good. I like it. A lot of people moan about it, but I think it's a good airline.
The food is good as well. It's Asaf Granite.
Oh yeah, the food is great.
Yeah.
They did an upgrade and they have really good sandwiches. And stuff.
They do.
But I think above everything, I think it's also important to people understand that when you fly El Al, the Israeli airline, it's a level of security like no other airline in the world.
Yeah.
So from the point of check-in to the questioning to the bag searches to the amount of questionings, that the questions you get, who arranged the suitcase, who did it, there's like so many layers of security that once you're on that plane, you're on the safest plane in the world.
You are.
Also, I think it'd be interesting for people to know that the pilots flying El Al planes are former IDF like pilots. Military pilots. So to handle an emergency landing, emergency takeoff, and everything in between, I think that's really good. Something else that people should know about El Al is that there's armed personnel in disguise inside the plane.
Oh, really?
So if something arises, there is somebody, I don't know, probably even like more than one person.
There is somebody
with a gun in the cabin, ready to take down any terrorist.
Wow, I never knew that.
Also, what people should know is that planes are equipped with anti-missile capability in case there's like a missile attack. So,
which is why I will only fly El Al and have only been during a time of war. I only want to fly with El Al, knowing that they can handle coming into Israeli airspace in and out. It's the taking off and the landing into Israel that I feel the safest with El Al?
I do feel the safest, but if I get a cheaper flight with another airline, I would fly. The reason I would only fly El Al for the past 18 months, it wasn't so much because of security, which I like and I appreciate, and I also like the food, but it was because there was so many cancellations.
Yeah.
Because everything was on and off. So if you had a flight with another airline, again, I know so many people, my dad actually, he had a flight back from Spain and he got cancelled again and again and this and everything is such a headache to deal with cancellations that I mean, if El Al cancels, it's because it's major.
Major, yeah.
But generally, they will be the last one to cancel.
That's why. Fact, I flew out of London a time when Hezbollah had just launched. You guys were all in rocket shelters.
Right.
Hezbollah had launched a huge missile. It sent you guys all into shelters.
Okay.
And
but when?
This was November. October. September. End of September. And you wouldn't have even known in London that you guys were all in shelters, that Hezbollah, that it was just business as usual with El Al at Luton.
Well, when I flew a month after October 7th, I went to Spain for a month because we were like in shelters like 3 times a day. So I just went to family and to kind of like escape the war. And in the airport, there were like all these massive shelter signs.
Yeah.
So it was really weird because first of all, the airport is always packed and it was super quiet and only with like the El Al counter. So that was a bit creepy, the duty free, everything. And also like it was really sad because Israel is a country that lives from tourism. So to see like the lack of traffic was really heartbreaking. Then inside the airport, like all the signs to the shelter, and I was like, oh my god, if a siren goes off, and at the time there were like sirens going off all the time. And then when I was on the plane, I was like, oh my god, I really hope a siren doesn't go off in the tarmac. And I'm inside the plane, I don't know what's the protocol. Then you cannot go into a shelter, and I also hope like they don't start firing rockets as the plane is taking off. So it's pretty tense. I was very tense. A lot of people say you're crazy, the chances of a rocket hitting a plane. I was like, I don't care.
I'm not, the Houthis are at the moment, as we speak, like this week, have been deliberately targeting Ben Gurion Airport. So I don't know. I think it's amazing that a plane hasn't been hit by a rocket.
No, I mean, but it is true that for a plane to be hit by a rocket, that like, I mean, what are the chances? It's like a plane is quite small. The rocket, I mean, for them to collide in the air is, what are the chances? The other thing I would say is that it's not just about planes. So like, let's say after October 7th, a couple of days later, I went to my parents in Jerusalem and I went on a train. And at one of the stops, at the first stop, the siren went off and everyone had to evacuate the train. And that was really stressful. That actually really got me on edge because I was inside a train, I was with a suitcase. Do I take the suitcase? Do I leave the suitcase? Then where is the shelter in the train station? So we were taken into a shelter. I ended up taking my suitcase and I felt really bad because then I brought it in and other people couldn't get into the shelter. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill people here. But again, it's like everything to do with transport. Again, my sister was in a car going with my dad to a job interview and a siren went off in the middle of the motorway and they had to just take cover and just lie on the ground. So all of those things, when you're like in the middle, when you're caught up in the middle, whether you're like in a bus, in a train, in a motorway, in a car, in an airport, is very, very stressful.
And I have been in a shelter at Ben Gurion, so I have been there when the siren's gone off.
Right. But they're in a way quite organised. So
it's very organised, it's very quick as well. And 10 minutes later, we were boarding the flight. So it was quick. And it's always just so funny when everyone's like crammed into a shelter and everyone's on their phones and finding out
the family who did it. Was it Yemen? Was it Lebanon? Was it Gaza? Was it this? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, again, this week I was in a shelter under a restaurant. I was having dinner on Tuesday with a friend, and then we're like, oh shit, sirens. But yeah, I mean, the whole flying and planes, I also think after the ceasefire a couple of months ago, when all the airlines announced that they're going to resume flights to Tel Aviv, everyone here was like, ah. So that's a real, like, it makes a huge difference to start having that connection to the world as well, that you feel like you're not as isolated anymore. So for me, that was a massive deal when I saw that, like, British Airways is flying again, Iberia, like all the airlines that I use all the time, American Airlines, all of this. I was like, okay, it just feels really good to stop being so isolated, because I think even if I could fly in and out with Alal, there's still something about feeling isolated when I go to the airport and there's only one airline, and it's the local airline, because they have military pilots and all these gadgets and devices. So, and going back to the airport and all the counters are full, and so to me, and again, we're still in the thick of it and with all this war, but I do think that that's a massive improvement for me, at least.
I think EasyJet is resuming flights in September.
Okay.
I think. So, yeah.
Good. Any other travel stories?
Any other travel stories?
No.
I don't think so. I'm going to Athens actually in a couple of weeks.
You flying Alal?
I'm flying Israel.
Okay, which is the other local airline.
Local, cheaper airline. Mm-hmm. It's a short flight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then back to London at the end of April.
So again, that's an amazing thing to me, because the fact that you just going for a weekend with Israel to Athens, that's not something you would have done 6 months ago or a year ago.
No.
So people only travel when it was an absolute must, because everything was such a headache. Getting a seat was a headache. There's no options. So I think what I'm hoping, and by the way, flight prices are crazy everywhere because of the inflation, but still, I think now that people have options, it's kind of, I used to go to London a lot for a long weekend or like somewhere in Europe, and I feel like for a year and a half, it's been so isolating for me, and I would only fly if I had to. If there was like a major thing that I had to attend, I wouldn't just jump on a plane to go like, let's just go for a weekend in Rome. It's like, no way. That's why I think it's important for people to understand that you can do this now, but you wouldn't have done it 6 months ago or a year ago. You would go to London to see your family, but that's it. You wouldn't choose to fly, and then maybe from London you could go somewhere else, but you wouldn't leave Israel on a quick flight to a local next destination nearby just for fun. Yeah. Because it wasn't the time.
And it wasn't fun to travel.
Right.
Yeah.
It really sucks the fun out of traveling. Yeah. It's a little bit like also like with COVID.
Yeah.
You know, during COVID where everything was so chaotic and the queues and the things and you had to do the PCRs.
Yeah.
It was like, well, if you had your brother's wedding or you had like a massive work event, you would go through the motions and pray for the best. But if you didn't have to, you're not going to be like, just spend the weekend in Paris just for fun. It's like, no way. Yeah. Everything was so cumbersome and complicated. I also feel they really stepped up the security in El Al.
Yeah.
Like during the war, wow, the checks.
Oh, the checks are insane.
But
I still get asked all the same questions. You speak Hebrew? What did you have for lunch? Have you got a bomb up your bum? No.
I have a little strategy. And a little secret for everyone that wants El Al staff to ask fewer questions and to get past the security quickly. Yeah. So when they ask me a question that is yes or no, so it's like, did you pack it? I basically give them like a really long answer. So they're like, for example, they say, did you pack your suitcase? And I'm like, yes, and it's amazing because I bought this new suitcase and it fits so much and it was only this amount of money. And they're like, get the hell out of my face. Are you safe? You're not a terrorist, you're just annoying. Yeah. And I used to do it also before I had an Israeli passport. When I had to go through customs in Israel, it was the same. So they would be like, they're like, what are you here for? What are you in Israel for? And I would be like, I'm here for Passover because I'm going to be like, I'm going to be with my family and I have 3 brothers. It's the most wonderful time of the year because the weather is amazing in Israel every Passover. And they'll be like, just get the hell out. Yeah. So instead of answering short question,
answer with a long answer.
Tell them your life story and annoy them to hell. And they'll be like, okay, get out.
When my dad came, he got asked at passport control, what is the purpose of your visit?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm visiting my daughter. And they said, is she a citizen of Israel? Right. Dad said yes, and he just shut the passport and went, off you go.
Right.
So
yeah, But sometimes for people that is not citizens, I would be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm visiting my daughter. She's so beautiful. Here's a picture. Are you single? So that's what I mean. It's like, I just
Yeah.
like start chatting to them and then they're like, oh my God, you know, because they have like a queue of like 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So just give them very long answers and tell them about your life. And they'll be like, just go. They stamp whatever they need to stamp and just like get in.
So I'm hoping to get to New York
Yeah.
later this year, around October, as I'll be opening a fashion show there.
Oh, that's
Which is
fun.
very exciting. So I'm curious as to what my options will be.
What do you mean?
Airline options.
I think you'll have all of them.
So
I think you'll have
I
American, you'll
think I
have
will
El Al,
have
you
a
have
few.
Delta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I flew El Al to LA a couple of weeks ago, and again, I just people moan a lot about El Al here, but I think they're good.
I think they're excellent. I mean, apart from that time where it was chaos at the airport and it took 2 hours to drop a suitcase.
Yeah.
And I was running to the gate.
Yeah. Actually, there was one thing that was really annoying for me. On the way back, I made a connection in LA. So they checked in the suitcase from my previous destination, which wasn't with an El Al flight. So I didn't go through security. So then when I was in LA at the counter, I had to go through all the security questions. I had to give them the code of my suitcase so that they could check it.
Oh my God.
Because it hadn't been gone through the typical El Al security. So then I had to do this massive queue to the questioning and a second queue, and they asked me to the code. So like, again, it is very annoying, and I was like an hour standing in a queue, and I was like, come on, but you got checked in, whatever. I was like, open it, do whatever you want. But I do feel always safer. Like, you know, they go through like security, they're so meticulous.
Yeah.
They ask all the questions.
And actually here, the most important security check is the first one you go through when you arrive at the airport in the car. So you know when the taxi...
Is it?
Yes, that's the most important check.
Why?
I have no idea, but I've been told it on so many occasions.
Yeah, so basically explain what it is though.
So I usually take a taxi to the airport, and as you arrive, the taxi driver will wind the window down for the passenger, and literally
before you arrive to the airport.
Before you actually go through, there are barriers.
Yeah, so as you enter from the motorway into the airport building, there's like a barrier, and you have to scroll down the window and say hi.
Say hi, and then it's very quick.
Yeah.
It's like not even 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's a checkpoint basically.
It's a checkpoint, but that is
and there's people with like all the guns and stuff. It's
that is the most important check you pass.
Yeah.
Basically, so it's they know what they're looking for.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall with their training.
But I always also love to know what they look for when they ask you, did you arrange a suitcase? What did you put in? Because they always ask the three same damn questions, but I always think that they're not looking for an answer. They're looking for like body language and stuff like that. So I always try to wonder what's the body language that they look for that would make me suspicious.
I always find if I'm flying after a coffee and maybe on a hangover, I always have the shakes a bit.
Right, so you're like,
and I'm like, oh my God, they're asking me questions. My hand is shaking.
Right, that's funny. No, I'm always like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like confident because I don't have anything to hide.
Yeah.
And I'm always like,
I mean, but sometimes just the questions make you nervous.
I think for someone that hasn't gone through them, because I've gone through them a million times, then yes. For somebody that is the first time flying El Al, it's always like, what the hell? They're like, why am I being asked a million questions? What are all these stuff? Because people don't understand. It's what Ruth says. It's like, before getting to the airport, there's a checkpoint in the motorway. Then you get to the airport, and before the gate of the airport, there's another checkpoint. Then you go into the airport, and it's security questioning. Yeah. Then there's the counter where you're checking your suitcase. Then there's the normal... So
then there's perhaps just your
hand luggage and all of that. So basically, there's like a lot more checkpoints before you get into the plane than anywhere else. And also people that travel into Israel for the first time, they're going to be stopped for like an hour of questioning.
Yeah.
So,
and I've had a very good friend, like had everything gone through her bag, and she was kept in a room for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And just awful how they treated her. But she also does understand. She understood, but it's just not a pleasant experience for anyone to have that. But I actually did have it once the airport to go to Eilat.
Right.
The one just down here.
Yeah, the other airport.
The other airport, which is closed now.
Mm-hmm.
And I had everything gone through, literally knickers flying, hair straighteners out. It was chaos.
Yeah, but again, you understand it's security, and yeah, it's annoying, it's frustrating, but then again, you know,
it's the
like
best security.
it's Israel, and also it's Israel,
It's
so
Israel.
there's a very real threat, and they have to filter, and it's usually the people that travel alone, single people that get those thorough searches. And again, once I got like a crazy search in Costa Rica. I was living in Costa Rica, and because I was on my own, you know, I was in my 30s, nicely dressed, looking this, and it wasn't for terrorism. If they thought I was like some drug dealer or something, and they searched everything in the most crazy way. They took me to a room, they asked me all these questions, they checked like the hand luggage, everything, like open the toiletry bag in here, in there. So yes, it is annoying and it is frustrating, but I accept it. I'm traveling alone.
Yeah.
I understand they have a massive drug issue for going in and out of the countries, and so people need to also be understanding that there's a massive terrorism issue coming in, flying out, etc. So you just have to live with it, but prepare for it. And normally it's not a 5-hour search. Normally it's like 30-minute questioning at the border in terms of like who are you visiting and who's your friend and what's their name and what's the surname and what do they do and what do you do and who do you
where do they live and where,
so you should get prepared for like questioning. Usually it's not as extreme as what your friend had, although I also have stories of people that have gone through it. It's always single people, by the way. It's always
no, she was with her family
and the whole family got searched.
So the interesting thing about her is that her mum is Jewish, her father was Muslim, so her surname is a Muslim surname.
But she's Jewish.
She's Jewish, but she went through, her father went through no problem. She, 5 hours of questions, and they went to the hotel. They left her there.
Right.
She had, 5 hours later, she got to the hotel, bless her.
Well, because really I mean, again, like 1 in every 5 Israelis is Muslim, so there's nothing strange or unusual about a Muslim going through customs.
No.
But if you say like, I am Jewish, but I have this surname, everyone goes like, hang on a minute.
Well, they were asking her questions like, why did your mother marry a Muslim?
Right.
Like all sorts of like questions that, but just,
But again, actually like a Palestinian I met in, well, it's not Palestinian, it's someone, a Canadian person from Palestinian descent that I met in the US. She was telling me the question she was once asked in Canada border. They ask her like, so if there's a war between this and that, would you stand with Canada? Would you stand with another country?
Wow.
So again, these questions are not so unusual, and this type of profiling is not so unusual. I also believe that unfortunately it happens for a reason. So again, you just have to be prepared for that line of questioning, in the same way that I got profiled because I was like white male, nicely dressed in Costa Rica. I don't take offense by it.
No.
So I just take it as it is, but it's quite an interesting experience for people. The thing is, we've done it many times, so it doesn't surprise us, and we know how to kind of like manage the system.
But I think it's important to sort of point out
and especially during war, it's like the security is like 10 times tighter. Which I love. I love because I get on that plane and I'm like,
you feel
I'm safe.
You feel safe.
Yeah.
So on that note,
thank you so much. We'll be chatting about more stuff soon.
Take care.
Bye.